Today we take the journey to Palo Alto, United States of America, to meet David Galbraith. He attends an event at Stanford University right now. David received his BA, MA and PhD degrees in biochemistry from Cambridge University. He was an out-of-postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University, and he is internationally known for his work in flow cytometry and cell sorting. He's the polymath type. David lives at the foothills of Santa Catalina Mountains in Tucson, Arizona. He's the father of two older children, Simon, living in the Bay Area and working in database administration for a biotech company, and Sarah, working as communications director at Google in London. He also has a 13-year-old daughter who shares time with him and her mother. Most of his extended family lives in or around London. When he's not working, David is a dedicated fan of camping, hiking, picnicking, and visiting wineries. He's also an artist, truly in love with music. He sings in the Tucson Symphony Chorus and in their local church choir. His wife has a trio, soprano, flute, and piano, and he helps at their concerts. He likes to watch a lot of different types of movies, from indies to DC Comics. David enjoys the absurdity of the human situation, thus he is willing to contribute with some solutions to help us avoid destroying the planet over the next few decades. He won the first time he submitted an Open Innovation Challenge with one solution. The problem was related directly to some scientific work he had done and published about 20 years ago. When I asked David to give a title to this overall material, he said, "Open innovation in an increasingly complex world." That's relevant. There is a time difference bridge of 10 hours to reach David in the United States. Let's take the shortcut and meet him now. Good morning, David. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Good morning. How are you?
Why are you at Stanford this weekend? What is happening there?
Yes, so I'm visiting Stanford University because a friend of mine, someone I know, a professor, a full professor at Stanford University, and so I'm talking at a conference that is being held for these 2 days. So we met yesterday, and now we're going to meet again today after I finish with you. So it's 8 in the morning here, and I'm drinking coffee to try and keep myself awake.
Where do you work now?
I'm working at the University of Arizona. I'm a professor in the School of Plant Sciences, and I also work in something called the 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 Institute. The 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 Institute is designed for interactive biological research, and puts together engineers and scientists and chemists and doctors. And the idea is to get us to work on interesting problems, which is, very much like the issues that we're going to cover today in exploring and discovering new ideas. So the university is trying to build on that kind of concept by allowing faculty to interact in new and exciting ways.
Is there any special project you are working on now?
At the moment I'm working on pancreatic and prostate cancer and using genetically engineered mice to look at the earliest events in oncogenesis. That's the process in which a normal cell starts to become a cancer cell. In such cancers as prostate cancer and pancreatic cancer, the initial events that trigger cancer often happen a long time before the cancer is diagnosed. When people are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the prognosis, the way forward is usually very bad. So, I think 80% of people die within a year of being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so, if we can find the initial events that trigger the cancer, which may have happened 15 years earlier, the earliest events, then we'll have a good way of being able to detect and treat this deadly form of cancer. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Taking a look at the past, what was the closest to your heart project?
Well, I've always been wanting to be a scientist, and I have pursued it. I've done research for 30 years now, and in the way that we do scientific research, we're always looking for new projects and new ideas and trying to push those forward. The projects are always exciting, and the process of finding these new projects and working forward is what I find the most exciting. So the most exciting ones are the latest ones. And the way that science works is you gradually get a more and more sophisticated and detailed understanding of how cells and tissues and organs and organisms work. And so we got a much greater sophistication of understanding now than we had 20 years ago. And in the future we will have a much greater and more sophisticated understanding of the future. So the whole process is exciting.
Talking about worded solutions and about being a problem solver, what was the problem you successfully solved in open innovation? How did your solution approach this challenge?
The one problem I was working on and submitted a solution for, in fact, turned out to be something that I published on 20 years previously. So the question was how to improve a method of looking at proteins inside cells, and I had essentially solved that problem 20 years ago in a publication I produced in the scientific literature. So all I had to do was go back and revisit that technology and then submit it, and that turned out to be the successful solution. So it took me all of about 25 minutes to get the solution and submit it. Very efficient use of my time. But it illustrates a point we might get to later, which is that a lot of knowledge is out there for seekers, and part of the problem is with the rate of knowledge production increasing so rapidly, even exponentially. A problem will be in seekers identifying solutions that already exist rather than people coming up with new solutions, and dealing with that kind of problem and all the data that is being generated in science and other areas is going to be a big challenge for the future.
Who was the seeking organization? Do you have any idea about it? What country? What industry?
I never found out, and they never contacted me directly. So I'm assuming that it was a big international plant research company.
What open innovation platforms do you use?
I keep an eye on the various open innovation platforms that are out there, and I generally just look at the questions that they're asking for solutions, and then see if there's anything that I can contribute. And so I'm looking for very specific questions that will intersect with my knowledge set, So that keeps me, it allows me to look at the lists of questions quite quickly. I don't spend too much time trying to figure out solutions for questions that I'm not equipped to answer.
When did you start to solve problems in open innovation?
I guess that was about 6 years ago, when the platform first came out. I thought it was interesting, and so I started looking at it, and then, as I mentioned, this one question came up which I knew I could answer, and so I interacted through that.
Why did you start solving problems? How did it happen?
It seemed interesting. I was looking at the problems that were being posed and thinking about ways that I might be able to deal with this. It was a new platform, it was a new idea. It just seemed interesting. I'm always interested in new things, and this was using the internet in a new and different way. And I thought, well, let's give it a shot, see what happens.
Do you still solve open innovation problems in present?
No, I'm not working on any at the moment. So, but I haven't seen anything that I feel I could answer recently.
Talking about open innovation, how do you feel about the open innovation market? Will it evolve? Will the present model survive? Do you think it has a future?
All these platforms, I think, are going to evolve, and the ones that are more successful will automatically select themselves. I'm wondering if artificial intelligence will be implemented into these platforms, so that the platforms can most easily and efficiently identify solvers that might be able to provide information. Going back to what I said a little earlier, I feel that a lot of solutions to questions exist already, and the seekers have to also realize this and understand that it's not just simply a method, a way of finding someone to provide new information, but often it's a way of finding old information that could be repackaged or re-evolved for the question under study. And since, the amount of knowledge in the world is going up so rapidly, this is going to be an increasing problem. And so some way of automating the search for the information through these platforms is a logical way to go.
In your opinion, what things should be improved when it comes to open innovation?
I don't know.
Or let's say open innovation solving from our perspective as solvers.
I think maybe automated keyword indexes for solvers, so that the seekers could provide keywords of things that they're interested in, and these could be automatically searched for in terms of the solvers. Areas of expertise could be included in this. Just some way of efficiently connecting people that takes less time than for the seekers to be looking through lists on the internet.
What kind of motivation do you think that seekers need in order to hire, to engage solvers, awarded solvers, in their own winning solution implementation and development process?
Yeah, in my case, I heard nothing from the seeker after I submitted the solution, after they provided the prize. So I feel that all they got from me was a couple of pages of solution, which could be implemented, but it would be more efficient, I think, if I had been engaged to guide them in the future implementation, because solutions are never completely predictable, and there may be additional problems that will come along. So but the problem with that is that whenever you're doing biological research, it takes maybe 6 to 9 months to actually figure out if something's going to work. And in that case, 6 to 9 months would cost maybe $500,000 of research general costs. and that may be too much for them to consider. I guess I don't know why my solution was not followed up, or I don't know, maybe it was followed up and I don't know about it, but I had no communication from the seeker after I submitted the solution. In terms of biological research, the international companies that support this kind of work seem to go from through cycles. So they have in-house research groups as one part of the cycle. They keep everything in-house, and then the next part of the cycle they go back and they reduce their internal research and they outsource everything. So when you outsource, you have less control over what's going on, and you can't push the progress as much as you can in-house. When you're working in-house, you have permanent employees, and so you don't have the flexibility to choose different groups of scientists to do different work. And you also have this pressure to switch projects. So single projects are seldom continued for long periods of time within these large companies. They have the ability, and they often do, just to switch people to short-term projects. So I think industry is still trying to figure out the most efficient way to get the work done and to make the most progress.
What do you think will be the next thing after open innovation?
I think it's going to be this idea of integrating artificial intelligence into problem solving, so that you can engage solution providers that can then automatically find information on the internet, through the internet, from the various research databases, and can provide more efficient solutions in a more effective way. So any kind of cyber method of increasing efficiency, I think, will penetrate the market.
How did becoming an awarded problem solver in open innovation influenced your life? What changed?
Nothing much changed. I felt good about myself. I got to meet you. I interacted with other problem solvers through the various lists that you established. That opened my mind to the ideas of open innovation problem solving. But nothing much changed. The process of open innovation is very similar to the normal process of scientific investigation. So the way that I do science hasn't changed. It's always a question of going out there, looking at what has been done, trying to figure out what the next steps are, and trying to think creatively of ways to achieve various goals that other people might not have thought about, and then seeking funding to do that, and get hiring people and doing the work. So it's an ongoing process, and it's very similar to what happens in open innovation.
What are your top questions to the business leaders and influencers of the world?
So I came up with 4 questions that I think business leaders need to deal with. So the first is, how do we deal with the exponentially increasing amount of human knowledge so that we can easily search and categorize it? And companies, of course, are well established to deal with these kinds of questions. So we have the various search engines, Google being the premier one. But we have to realize that the amount of knowledge that we get is increasing exponentially all the time. And so this will be a tremendous challenge in the future as knowledge over all fields will expand. And the second question is the impact of artificial intelligence in the future of the human race. This has been talked about by several of the leaders in the industry now. Some concern is expressed that we can, in the progress that we will have in artificial intelligence, gives the risk that this sort of artificial intelligence might turn out to be detrimental to the human race. And this is a question that sounds like science fiction, where the robots take over. but it's something that really needs to be talked about thoughtfully, because this could well be a serious problem in the future. I mentioned the idea of will humans ever reach Mars? Denial comes in the form of the fact that space isn't empty. So through the galaxy there are these things called cosmic rays, which are produced by explosions of stars and supernovas. And these are very energetic, very high energy remnants of atoms which are moving at very high speeds through the galaxy. These cosmic rays are very destructive towards living materials, and in the period that humans would have to take to reach Mars, the couple of years round trip that it would take, the amount of radiation that they would experience would reach lethal levels. And the reason that we can live on the planet Earth is because of two things. First, we have an atmosphere, and these cosmic rays hit the top of the atmosphere and they break down, and so they never hit the bottom of the Earth, the bottom of the atmosphere where we are. And second, we have a magnetic field in the center of the planet from circulating molten iron, and this magnetic field protects us by deflecting the cosmic rays, because these cosmic rays are charged and so are deflected in the magnetic field. Mars does not have a magnetic field, so we've got a problem there. And the reason the space station is up in low Earth orbit is so that the people on the space station, the astronauts, are protected from cosmic rays by the magnetic field of the Earth and by the fact that you're in a little bit of the atmosphere up there. So, as I've said previously, I don't think humans will ever reach Mars. It may be possible that we will explore Mars, as we are doing now, with robots, and it may be possible to build a climate habitat there, which would have to be buried so that the cosmic rays are screened from the humans. But getting the humans to Mars will turn out to be an issue, a very difficult issue, based on the radiation they'll experience getting there. So I think realistically, business leaders and influencers have to think about this and realize that you can't just wait and say, well, there'll be some kind of new technological revolution that will enable us to do this. I think it's probable that will not be, and so we have to live with that. And then finally, will we solve issues of climate change? I think the Paris meeting seems to have been reasonably successful, and if we all work together, the climate change issues can be solved, and at the same time, businesses can continue to make money out of the process of supplying energy to the world, but they have to be in a different form to just simply burning fossil fuels.
And now we'll go to the last section, which is the part with your message to headhunters, to CEOs. Yeah? What's your message to HR people, professionals and headhunters?
I'd say there are a lot of creative people out there, and you should explore all possible ways to efficiently find and use them. It's great to come to places like Stanford University, a university in which it's assembled a lot of good scientists, and so in the conference that I at today and yesterday, great to listen to people that are creative, and so it is possible to assemble units, companies or universities in which you have a high concentration of creative people, and when that happens, the synergy between the creative people improves the environment and provides you with tremendous resources.
What is your message to CEOs and boards of executives in general, to the leadership side of organization?
Well, it's only going to get more complicated, and to maintain and increase your company's profile, you need to seek out and incorporate the most sophisticated and creative ideas that you can find. And in particular, the idea of being bold, that change often is the most profitable way forward. And so thinking outside the box, or having mechanisms to think outside the box, is, I think, critical for any company, and particularly the larger ones. As companies get larger, the inertia increases, and coming up with ways to maintain the spirit of creativity and lateral thinking, I think, is crucial.
What is your message to the leaders of universities, to the educational system?
Encourage interactions with open innovation platforms. I think they should set up think tanks for positioning their institutions towards the future. One of the problems we have generally with universities is that the people that are least equipped end up as the senior administration, mainly because they have limited contributions in the areas of primary research and also are not particularly good at teaching. And so the way that university institutions need to operate, with some notable exceptions, is towards a rather mediocre higher administration. And then this makes it difficult for the university to move in new and creative ways, because typically the administration controls the larger amounts of funding that would be required to be redeployed for significant changes. So I think that's going to be a big problem, is how to make universities flexible to change. And since change is going to occur at a more rapid rate over the future decades, universities have to learn to become more flexible.
What is your message to the leaders of open innovation platforms?
In particular, a message, I say keep up the good work. I always like the idea of having a mobile device that in the morning could wake me up, make me coffee, and also suggest some problems that I need to work on based on its artificial intelligent way of predicting what I would be good in terms of solutions. So getting open innovation platforms onto mobile devices in an efficient way, I think, would be great. And then making these mobile devices enough to do some of the open innovation for solution providers would be great.
What would you say to problem solvers and to worldwide talented professionals?
I would say keep going. Things are going to get more interesting as we go forward, and we need all the help we can get.
How can people reach you, David? How can they get in touch with you if they want to ask you questions, to have a conversation?
My last name, Galbraith, is a Scottish name. It's a clan name. And there are quite a limited number of David Galbraiths. If you search me on Google, you'll find me, David Galbraith in Arizona. You'll find me. There are other David Galbraiths, so beware of the imitations. My email address is Galbraith, my last name, @arizona.edu. And that's in fact an alias which forwards the emails directly to me. And then on my website is http://cals.arizona.edu, and then my last name, Galbraith. So email is great. I will try and respond to any emails that are sent my way, and that's just the best way to contact me.
Thank you very much for your time, David. It was a pleasure meeting you. At the end of the day, solvers are ordinary people, but their choice to engage in making things better reveals their exceptional characters. And by making this step forward, solvers bring the act of continuous learning to the next level. We are solvers. We take innovation personally.